football fans. Welcome once again. Hail, Commanders Salute. Welcome to another primetime edition of the Commanders Salute. I am your host, Freddie Football, the resident pigskin prophet. Thank you once again for joining our show. For those of you that are watching for the first time, hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments, feel free to drop them down. Those of you that have already been watching, thank you. God bless. Much love to you. Are you ready for some football? Hail, Commanders. I'm ready for some football. Okay. The 2022 NFL draft is already underway, and so far it's been very exciting. I'm pumped up. I'm primed. I'm ready for a new season, and right now they're still in the midst of the draft. I believe they're coming up on the fourth round. So later on our next segment, I'll take a look at the rest of the picks that the Washington Commanders made. So far, there's been four. The Washington Commanders had the 11th pick in the NFL draft for the first round. In exchange for extra picks, they made a trade with the New Orleans Saints. So they went from 11th to 16th. They moved back to number 16 in the draft in the first round. And if you remember a couple segments back, I talked about three different players that they could possibly take in the first round. And one of those players that I mentioned was one of the very ones that they drafted in the first round. So, in the 2022 NFL draft at number 16, the Washington Commanders selected Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from the Penn State Nittany Lions. And this guy is a playmaker. Jahan Dotson, number 5. Check him out on the highlights on YouTube. He wore number 5 at Penn State. Jahan Dotson. He comes in at 5'11", about 180 pounds. He's fast. He's a great route runner. In high school, he was a 3-sport star. He ran track, played football, played basketball. He's a great addition to the Washington Commanders, and what he adds, because we already have Scary Terry McLaurin, Touchdown Terry as I call him, the wide receiver. But this guy is going to come in and he's going to add more explosiveness to the offense. So our offense now is more explosive. It's now going to be more exciting because they're no longer going to be able to double team Terry, because this guy right here is a playmaker. Like I said, he's a great route runner. He plays bigger outside of himself. And what I mean by that is this man can go up and grab the ball. And like I saw on the highlights of Jahan Dotson, this man would go up and catch the ball with one hand. He plays much bigger than his 5'11", 180-pound frame. He will go up and he will contest balls. So he played basketball in high school. So he's got great jumping ability. He's got ups in that department. He adds firepower to this offense, and he becomes another weapon for quarterback Carson Wentz. So, like I said, he has great hands. He can stretch his frame of 5'11", and he can go up and snatch the ball from out of the air. And he creates separation when he runs routes, and he's fast. So after he catches the ball, he's even more dangerous. So this guy is considered the best hand in this wide receiver class coming out in this draft. He is considered to have the best hands. He rarely drops a ball. So a lot of the grades I saw some of the grades that they were grading on the teams of the players that they picked in the draft, and they gave him a B. They said that not that he was too much of a reach as far as where he was drafted at. Excuse me. But I think that it was a wise move by the Commanders to trade back and to get an extra pick in the draft. So I thought that was wise on their part, and I thought that this pick was an excellent pick. Like I said a couple segments back, I mentioned this guy that he's a great playmaker. He can score. He's a threat from anywhere in the field, and he's an added weapon in the offense, and it makes the Washington Commanders' offense more dangerous now. So this was a very smart move, like I said, by the front office, by Martin Mayhew, Coach Ron Rivera, to draft a much-needed wide receiver. That's what they needed, and to get a third and a fourth round pick in addition from them moving back to 16 to get him. So I'm going to grade it an A on that. Okay, round 2. At the 47th pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select defensive tackle Phidarian Mathis out of Alabama. And I also applied Jahan Dotson, our wide receiver coming out of Penn State. Phidarian Mathis, defensive tackle, played at Alabama, played a year with Deron Payne, who is now already with the Washington team, with the Washington Commanders defensive line, who pairs with Jonathan Allen, who also played at Alabama. So this is another Crimson Tide defensive lineman, and he's very good. Phidarian Mathis, he was number 48 at Alabama. Check him out on YouTube. He's 6'4", 310 pounds. He earned the second all-team SEC honors in 2021. He had 53 tackles for the year, 12 for a loss, 9 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 12 starts. And he had 129 career tackles. What can I say? Phidarian, I saw the highlights, and he's a disruptor. So if there's one word that I can say about this guy on the interior, on the defensive line, he's disruptive. He has long arms and length, 36 inches long. He can play different positions from the 0 technique to the 5. Washington Commanders, they play a 4-3 defense. So he'll more than likely come in because Matt Ioannidis is gone. So he might play the gap or maybe move over, but he definitely will get some playing time. He's a good run stopper. He can take on double teams, and he's very, very good at collapsing the pocket. And that's what we need in addition to what we have with Jonathan Allen on the line and Deron Payne. Because if this guy can come in and collapse the pocket, then those other guys are going to wreak havoc. Then you got Montez Sweat on the other side of the line. Then you got Chase Young. So this looks to become a very, very solid defense. And I know last year they didn't do all that well, but this guy comes in and he fills a need because the defensive line was very thin with Tim Settle leaving to Buffalo and Matt Ioannidis leaving. So this guy comes in and he fills a need. So Phidarian Mathis, and some commentators said that he was picked at the wrong spot, but he's the right player to pick. So Phidarian Mathis, look out for him. Big guy. Was a captain at Alabama. I saw his highlights, and this man was like he was just psyched up. He was just excited to play football. He was fired up. And that's the kind of people that we need on our team, that we need on our defense, that's going to come in and that's going to revolutionize the game of football on the defensive side of the ball. So I look forward to this guy coming in, Phidarian Mathis. Check him out. He was number 48 on Alabama defensive tackle. Pick number round 3 with the 98 pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. The Washington Commanders select running back Brian Robinson Jr. out of Alabama. Brian Robinson, this was a good, I thought that this was a good pick. Brian Robinson, this guy has a linebacker physique. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. That's a big running back. 6'2", 225 pounds. He had a breakout year in 2021 in Tuscaloosa. He had 271 carries for 1,343 yards. That's 5 yards per carry. Wow. This guy was a bull. And he had 14 touchdowns. So Brian Robinson Jr. Was number 4 at Alabama. Check him out on YouTube on the highlights. You can check him out. He is considered the best short yardage running back in this year's draft class. I love it because last year, yes, we have Antonio Gibson. He's an athlete. He's a Swiss Army knife at the running back position. He can run the ball. He can catch. He can block. And then you have J.D. McKissick, another running back that we had that excelled. He excels as a pass catcher coming out of the backfield. And he was used for the short yardage game. But Brian Robinson brings a different element to now being the third running back for the Washington Commanders because each one of them contributes something different. Like I said, J.D. McKissick, he's a good pass catcher coming out of the backfield. Antonio Gibson, he runs the ball. He's speedy. He can also catch out of the backfield, you know. But Brian Robinson, this guy is like a workhorse. This guy is like a bull. And he has very deceptive speed. So he can bully, he can push and penetrate defenses just with his strength alone. That's how, and he can carry on a heavy workload. So he's like a bruiser. So this guy will come in and complement Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick at the running back. And last year Washington had trouble sustaining drives, like in a short yardage game. They did well sometimes, and other times they didn't do well. So they didn't really run the clock out a lot. Just use it with the running game. But this guy, Brian Robinson Jr., comes in and he allows them a chance to be able to get those short yardage 1 and 2 yard gains or 3 yard gains to sustain drives and to keep the clock moving if they're ahead in the game. So this guy adds a new element to the backfield, and he's another added weapon. So Brian Robinson Jr. out of Alabama. And with the 4th pick at 113, the 4th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select safety from Louisiana, Percy Butler. Percy Butler, I don't have a whole lot of information on this guy, but what I do know about him is that he looks for the big hit. He's a decent tackler. He's dominant on special teams. And he's an average in man-to-man coverage. But what he lacks in that, he makes up for speed. He runs a 4.3 in the 40-yard. So this guy will contribute on defense some kind of way. I don't know if he'll be an automatic starter or not. That remains to be seen. But he adds depth to the secondary, so that was a need that was filled because they need help in the secondary. So, so we have Washington through that pick. They traded back, and they got 2 extra 5th-round picks. So they have, let's see here. They have 2 picks in the 5th round. I think they had a 6th pick, but I don't know if they gave that up or not. So I'm going to see. Give me just a sec. Okay. Yeah, so they traded back, and they got in the 4th round, they traded back with their 120th pick, number 4, because they had 7 picks after Butler, but they traded back, and they got 2 picks for round 5 at 144, the first pick, and at 149. And they picked in round 7 at 230 and 240. So those are the remaining picks. On the next segment, I'm gonna go back over those and let you know who they picked. And to answer your question, there was a question a trivia question that I asked on the last segment. In 1981, the Washington Redskins started 0-5. And in their last 11 games, they won 8 games. They did not make the playoffs that year. They finished 8-8. But the following year, they went to their first Super Bowl, got their first Super Bowl title. They got their first title, won their first title in about from 40 years back, 1980, 1982, 1983. They went to the Super Bowl. Who was the coach that coached during this era? I'll give you 20 seconds. In 1981, the Washington Redskins, their first 5 games, they started out 0-5. They didn't win a game. The last 11 games, they won 8 games, and they finished the season 8-8. And then the following year, they did not make the playoffs that first year of this new coach that started a new era. But the following year, he went to the Super Bowl, and they won it all. What coach was he? Who was he? 20 seconds up. 1981, Washington Redskins started a new era, and the coach that came in that changed the philosophy of the team, changed the attitude, changed the culture, and they became Super Bowl champions. That coach was Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs. Okay. Now, we are going to close this segment. Thank you once again for joining the Commander's Salute. On our next segment, I'm going to go over all rest of the draft picks. I believe they have 8 in all because they traded back a couple times. And right now, I would say my grade, if I was to give a grade for the Commanders, I'll probably give them a B+. Day 1, day 2, and so far day 3, just starting out for them, I'm going to give them a B+. And also, I forgot to make mention that I didn't mention in the last segment. Please forgive me. As you all know, former quarterback drafted by Washington in the 2019 draft was former quarterback Dwayne Haskins, who went on to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His life was cut short, and I believe he was struck by a vehicle or something like that off a freeway. His life was cut short at the age of 24 years old, and Dwayne Haskins was a very, very good football player. He was a great quarterback. He was a standout at Ohio State. He came in and played for the Washington Redskins, and then Washington Commanders. He was a great kid, had a very good heart, was a kind person, and unfortunately his life was cut short at 24. So, before we end this segment, thank you once again for joining the Commander's Salute. And before I end it, let's all bow our heads and let's take a moment of silence for Dwayne Haskins in respect to him. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining another segment of the Commander's Salute. Hail, Commanders fans, guys and gals, salute. Had a great time. We'll see you next time on our next segment. You guys enjoy the draft. Have a great weekend. And I am your host of hosts, Freddie Football. Y'all have a good one. Peace.